There we go. So we'll start with my introduction. My name is Jennifer Clayton. I am the New York State Bar Association's Attorney Wellbeing Program Manager. And the Attorney Wellbeing Program is focused on finding a balance in the legal profession, in the legal field, and really trying to balance the well-being, and it comes with so many different facets that contribute to our well-being. So today I'm really grateful and excited to introduce Brooke Mellen of Cultured Forest, who is going to be teaching us and giving us a lot of info about forest bathing. So Brooke, I will pass it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, great. Thanks for having me. Just so everyone knows what we'll be doing, I'm going to first go through a bit of an educational section just to teach you a bit about the history of forest therapy, where it comes from, why it matters, and then I'll just take you through some guided meditation. We'll do a couple of exercises. So hopefully it'll be both educational and relaxing for you. One moment. Oops. Copyright notice. This is being recorded. So this is the intellectual property of Cultured Forest LLC. So kindly reach out if you wish to reuse it in any sort of way. I like to tell a little bit about my story just because I feel like it's something that many people can relate to. My background is actually in risk management. I was previously a risk manager at Sotheby's Auction House, and also after that handled fine art and jewelry insurance claims. So understand a bit of what attorneys go through in terms of just, understanding details and doing a lot of work with clients, things like that. And I would always spend time in nature for my own personal well-being. And one day was out hiking with a friend and just happened to say, someday I might like to take people on nature walks in the outdoors. And that friend said, "Oh, sounds great." And then we just kept hiking. And now I'm a huge believer that what you say when you're in the outdoors, it's a great place for brainstorming. You never know what's going to happen. And then I eventually found this book on forest bathing by King Lee. And he's a Chinese doctor in Japan. And I was fascinated with the concept of forest bathing. And the more I studied it, just decided I wanted to take some time to forest bathe myself, and took a break from my career, went to Japan, studied their programming there, and just kind of fell in love with this concept of helping people connect to nature for well-being, as I was personally doing it myself. And then was very fortunate to get a great write-up in the Wall Street Journal right before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, I actually developed this programming. So this isn't a program to try and recreate time in nature. It's more helping you get a sense of community, help you realize how important it is to be in nature for your well-being, hopefully help you commit to that, and also just doing a bit of recreating through guided meditation the experience of being in nature. So I'm not trying to replace the time you have in nature in any way. So the history of forest bathing, this is me in Japan, checking out some of their lovely, lovely trees there. So it actually translates to, the word is Shinrin-yoku, or as I learned at a Japanese bookstore this week, it's actually closer to Shinrin-yoku. But it means to take in the forest atmosphere or bathe in the atmosphere in the same way you might sunbathe. People think it's swimming. It's not, although you can certainly do that if you like that. And it was actually coined by the Japanese Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries in the 80s. So many people call it the ancient practice of forest bathing, which it does likely have roots in Shintoism, but it isn't a child of the 80s, like many, maybe a few of us. And it actually was developed in response to a public health crisis in Japan. They were facing high burnout rates, and due to the high density city living. And since that time, they've done several studies about forest therapy. They developed a group that actually does these studies, and with them, you would go to the forest, you'd get your blood pressure checked, your pulse rate. Sometimes they test cortisol, which I'll talk about in a minute. And they found all these great health benefits that come with spending time in nature. And many of us think, well, that's obvious. But when you're talking about investing in programming for nature, it certainly helps to show that you have some results from the programming. In the same way, if you were doing an employee well-being exercise, it's good to have some kind of metric for success rate of that program. So what did they see? They saw a decrease in the stress hormone cortisol, especially as people were exposed to phytoncides, which is a chemical that trees produce to ward off disease and illness. Think something like pine sol, that cleaning product, anything like that. Those more coniferous trees have very high levels of phytoncides, but you can also get them in aromatherapy. They saw lowered blood pressure among participants, increase in killer T cells, which fights disease, and improved immunity. And then the feelings of awe that people get when they're in nature brought about all of these wonderful results of lowering levels of cytokines. So what interested me about all of this is I had a father who had heart disease, so I was very interested in me personally lowering my cortisol and learning about how all of these things actually could improve my personal well-being. Really quickly, why does cortisol matter? And you may or may not know this. I love this this drawing. It actually comes from a children's magazine, which I think makes it much easier to understand. For me personally, what happens in your body when you're in fight or flight. Interestingly, so the thinking center of the brain, this part of the brain, it actually becomes deactivated and the limbic system kicks in. That's your amygdala, they call it the reptilian brain. And that signals to your body, uh-oh, we need to get ready to flee or fight. And then adrenaline gets released into the bloodstream, and thereby cortisol gets released into the bloodstream. And all of these are good. We need all of these things to be prepared. But then with sustained stress over time, you continue to have these levels of cortisol. They are lower levels, but they still remain in your system. So the hope through all of this practice is that we see those lowered. And there's even been studies done on the brain with people practicing mindfulness, showing that the connection between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala actually gets better as people practice mindfulness, so that they can be a bit more alert when they're in that fight or flight moment and maybe not reacting in such a visceral reptilian animal way, which hopefully, you know, somebody's yelling at you. And I'm sure as lawyers, you get yelled at enough. It would just kind of help you kind of sit back and observe what's going on around you and maybe not be quite so reactive. So that's all of the history we're going to do. I just like to share that just so that you know that there is quite a lot of research behind what we're going to be doing today. So before we start, I'm just going to have you all quickly note down, take a moment just to consider a couple of emotions and how you're feeling in this moment. So take a moment and just consider your level of depression right now. And I'm going to have you rate it on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being not at all and 5 extremely. So, and then all the in between. So if you were to rate your depression levels of 1, not at all the way up to 5 extremely, and you can just write this down or make a personal note, how would you rate that level of depression? And the same with anxiety. So if you're not anxious at all, put 1 all the way to 5 extremely. And then we're going to do that for anger as well. So 1 not at all to 5 extremely. And then fatigue from 1 not at all to 5 extremely. And just make a note of that. And next, I'm going to lead you on a bit of guided meditation. So for this portion of the exercise, all I need you to do is just sit back and relax a bit. And I'll even invite you, if you feel comfortable enough, to close your eyes. So go ahead and get situated, get comfy, and just take a nice deep breath and become aware of your breath. Notice if you're breathing through your chest or your stomach. And don't judge your breath, just notice it, be aware of it. And start to imagine that you are in a forest. This is a safe place, maybe one you're familiar with, or it's an amalgamation of several different forests you've been to. But you're here in your bare feet, and again, it's safe for you to walk around. Just begin to wander slowly through this space, bringing your gaze to the forest floor, the earth beneath you, noticing the details of what you see: rocks covered in moss, fallen trees covered in green shades of lichens, different shades of leaves, needles on the ground, pine needles. You might see a few animals scurrying about. And then bring your gaze slowly to mid-level, noticing what you see all around you. Trees with different types of bark, different shades of colors, grays, dark black, brown, again covered with moss and lichen. You'll see young trees with their green leaves just starting to grow. Continue to wander slowly, just bringing your gaze above head, looking up at the sky, noticing blue sky through the leaves, seeing the light filtering through the leaves and the gentle movement of those leaves above your head. And consider how you might feel in the space. Imagine if there's a nice breeze on your skin. Perhaps you feel sunshine, or maybe you like a bit of shade. Just consider what feels comforting to you, and also feel the earth beneath your feet as you slowly walk, feeling that connection, feeling your toes spread out, feeling the soft earth. And imagine what you might smell in this space. Perhaps some pine needles again, leaves, dried leaves on the ground, the smell of the earth. Perhaps it's been raining. Maybe you can even catch a couple of different scents in the air. Maybe a bit of sage, whatever it is that reminds you of being in the forest. And take a moment to consider what you hear. It's quiet, almost as if you're being swallowed up by the sound. You can hardly hear your feet beneath you because the earth is so soft. You might hear a few animals, perhaps a stream. And as you're just focusing on being in this space, I want you to notice a grove of trees up ahead, and slowly take your time to meander into this circle of trees, noticing the earth again beneath your feet, feeling comforted by the circle of trees. And take a moment then to imagine that you yourself have roots and that you're a part of this circle of trees, remembering that trees communicate through their roots in the earth, often sending each other signals, warnings, nutrients, nourishment. So let your roots start to move through this earth, feeling different layers, moving around rocks, different textures of soil. And let your roots begin to mingle with these trees around you, these wise trees that have been there longer than any of us. And consider something that you're in need of today, some simple nourishment. Begin to imagine your roots actually finding whatever it is that you need in the earth today. And in a moment, I'll have you take 3 nice deep breaths, just taking in whatever it is that you might be in need of. So go ahead and breathe in, taking in that fresh air, and breathing out, letting go, giving back whatever is sticking with you that might be a bit difficult. Remembering this forest has been here much longer than any of us, and it can hold whatever it is that's difficult. So breathing in again, taking in light and nourishment, and breathing out, letting go. And one more time, breathing in, pulling in that oxygen all the way to the top of your head as if it were the crown of a tree, and then letting go. And let those roots begin to pull back into your body, knowing that they're there for you whenever you might need them. And to close, I want you to choose one tree in this circle of trees that feels inviting to you. And feel free to walk up to that tree, just noticing the texture, imagining the feel, the solidity beneath your hands of that tree. And consider that as you breathe out, you produce carbon dioxide, which this tree needs, and in return, it produces oxygen. So just take a moment to let your breath mingle with this tree, realizing you have a symbiotic relationship with the forest around you, relationship of give and take. And on the count of 3, I will invite you to open your eyes again and come back to your current space. And as you do that, I'd like you to consider your current surroundings as a place of safety, as a place of refuge. And try to bring that feeling of being in the forest into your current surroundings. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go ahead and open your eyes and just get reacquainted with your surroundings and coming back to those emotions. I asked you to take a moment to consider. We talked about depression. So take a note on a scale of 1 to 5, just noting with 1 being not at all depressed, 5 being extremely depressed. Take a moment to note that down. And consider also your level of anxiety from 1 not at all to 5 extremely. And then anger from 1 not at all to 5 extremely. And then fatigue from 1 not at all to 5 extremely. And just take a personal note if you see any improvements. Also, take a moment to consider if there was anything about that meditation that was appealing to you, whether it was sounds of the forest or smells or the feelings, and try to incorporate more of that into your life, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end with some goal setting. And then also at the end, I'm going to give you a survey to fill out, which will ask you about those mood states again. So if you'd be kind enough to fill that out for me, so I have some information on whether it helped improve your mood. And you're also welcome to drop into the comments and share any thoughts you might have had about that, or if you felt better, if anything was difficult, would love to hear about that. So just really quickly, some resources. It may seem obvious, but it's not always obvious about bringing the outdoors indoors. And you can't even do this in an office environment. Aromatherapy can be a bit more difficult because it can bother people around you. But if you bring in actual eucalyptus leaves or maybe a pouch of something, you like lavender or something like that, you could just pull it out of your desk whenever you need to feel a bit calmer, remembering that those aromas are a lot of what makes Shinrin Yoku what it is. So some people like to even have a rock or a shell collection on their desk, or you can put it in your drawer, but it actually can look very nice and professional if you set it up right. And it can help other people who come into your space kind of feel a bit calmer. Also, something that I've done is if I have a difficult meeting, I'll sometimes put a rock in my pocket. Nobody knows it's there. I'll just hold on to that rock, or maybe you like crystals or just something to help you feel a bit more solid if you're a rock person. Also hanging photos of nature in forests. There's a lot of research behind actually seeing nature can help you feel better. You can create a nature playlist with songs that you like. Take some time to get creative. Insight Timer is a great free app where you can do all kinds of different meditations. And even on social media, I recommend, we're often doom scrolling or seeing everybody doing amazing things in their life, getting FOMO. Why not follow some lovely local parks that you enjoy, support them, and also kind of get some tips and just see some nature in your feed. So now I'm going to give you a chance to get a little bit creative. So using a different part of your brain today. And we're just going to do this for about 3 minutes. And my hope is to kind of, again, use your imagination to get you in a more natural space. So what I want you to do is just take a moment to think of a favorite place in nature. And you will need a pen, by the way, or if you use a notepad or computer. So we'll be doing a bit of writing. But take a moment to be in that lovely place in nature and just remember how you feel. And it can be the beach, your forest, mountains, whatever is your kind of happy place. Maybe it's your backyard. And just take a moment to remember the temperature of that place. Maybe you like warm or cooler. Think about if there's a breeze there, what that sounds like. Remember the smells of that place. Trying to get some descriptive words. Think of the colors that you see in that place. And also consider what you might hear in that place. And as you're considering that, I'll invite you to write a haiku poem. And a haiku is pretty short and simple, and don't feel the need to be exact. I'm going to give you 3 minutes, but I'm always surprised how quickly people can turn this out. And the first line just needs to be 5 syllables. The second line is 7, and the third line is 5 syllables. So just take a moment to get yourself in that place, and I'll let you know when we're about halfway through. And if you feel brave, you are welcome to drop your haiku into the chat, and I'm happy to share that with everyone if you feel brave enough. So go ahead and get started. Just take a minute. I'm going to play a little nature music for you. And we're about halfway there, so keep going. I'm just starting to type mine into the chat. I'm thinking. We'll take another couple seconds. Finish up if you haven't already. And if you feel so brave you can either just mention in the chat where you were thinking of, or you are also welcome to share your haiku. I'm always just thinking of forests, so my haiku was, the trees call my name. I can hear the leaves blowing, telling me to rest. I guess I'm a little tired and need to rest. So, but if anyone else has a haiku they feel like sharing, or if you even feel brave, you could share it to social media, whatever feels good for you. So, or just share it with one of your coworkers or somebody who's special to you. Oh, Jennifer said she thought of the mountaintop at Mount Van Hoevenberg. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Or maybe it's just Hoevenberg. That sounds amazing. And then you wonder what season. I think in the fall probably would be a season I would think of. So, ooh, we've got, Shelley had one. The warmth of the sand, seagulls flying overhead. I love to come back. Yes. Even just so, it's interesting how just a few lines can make you feel like you're in that place and you can suddenly imagine it. Oh yes, the sand. So I love that. And we got a little bit of a late start, so I'll probably take us a few minutes over, if that's okay with everyone. So, and if you want to drop your haiku into the notes, that's the comments, that's great, the chat, sorry. So I like to close with just a little bit of goal setting for you. You've heard today what the importance is of connecting with nature, however that might be. And also you got a chance to kind of think and be in nature and think, oh, the thought of being in the sun or the thought of the breeze or being by the beach. So part of what I want to do today is have you kind of tune into whatever it is that helps you feel better. And really quickly, I'm going to pause and read Crystal's. Okay, it says, 1, that's how I feel when you beckon me to sit on your gnarled down trunk. Oh, 1, that's how I feel. Okay, yeah. I can picture that gnarly trunk. So Alicia said, late summer on top of a mountain, emerging from the forest to the overlook, the blueberries on their bushes are ripe. Oh yeah, I feel like I'm Steve said the crackle of leaves, the carpet, the florist, that carpet, the forest floor make me think of home. I feel so emotional. That's what happens the more I spend time in the forest. I get emotional a lot more easily. So, but when I hear these, I just love to have people, I can feel that I'm in that place. So thanks everyone for sharing. So back to the goal setting. Some of you may have thought of the ocean or other places. Just take a moment, and I don't want this to be too difficult. Maybe you just want to set one goal, one simple goal, but think about how you can bring nature into your home. Maybe it's through some meditations that you want to download, or pictures of the forest, or maybe just setting up some plants. And think about your workspace. Is there something you could do to make it a bit more comforting, a bit more naturey? And then what's something you can do each day? This one's a bit harder, but could it be just you take a 5-minute step outside, or 10 or 15-minute, or you actually have lunch outside, or you do a 5-minute just visualization. So what could that be that you do every day? And then once a week, something a little bit more challenging. Maybe you go on a 1-hour walk. It's recommended that you spend at least 2 hours in nature a week to get all the benefits. So, and then once a month, this can be something bigger. You know, you're gonna go on a forest therapy walk once a month, or go on a hike. And then finally, I recommend that you just start thinking about one goal once a year. This is a bigger one. For me, it would be something like, I'm going to go to the Amazon or something like that. Or maybe you want to do a service project. Service project in nature is a great way to give back. And it also just, it's a way, you know, going and helping planting trees, something like that. So, yeah. So this is basically the close of our experience. As I said, it's not so much about having you be virtually in nature, but just having you kind of think about how you can connect with nature a bit more. I am going to drop a survey in the chat section. So if you wouldn't mind taking a moment to fill that out, that gives me some data on if your mood state improved, as well as any feedback you might have. I'm also going to include a link to my website, And then also a recent article that was published in Lawyer Wellbeing about forest bathing that actually has some of those, a worksheet that you can use to do some of that goal setting. So that officially closes our session. I hope it helped you. I hope you got to see some mood improvements. Feel free also to email me if you have any questions. I'm at culturedforest.com. Would love to set up time to do this within your organizations or even in person. So yeah, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or email me. Otherwise, this ends our session.
Thank you so much, Brooke. And speaking of in person, did you want to share about your event this Saturday?
Oh, yes. So I do have an event. Let me find it.
I have the link handy if you want me to put
It's on my website too, culturedforest.com, but I actually have a really good dear friend that we do a combined event in Central Park this Saturday at 10 o'clock. And she does a sound bath portion. So I do the forest therapy, and then you get to lay down for about an hour, and she does a sound bath where you get to look up at the trees, and it's actually really kind of a cool experience. So I just put that link there if you care to join.
And I'll be including all of these links in my email out to everyone. So don't worry for all you frantically clicking them open before the Zoom closes. And yes, for those of you that are local to the city, this Saturday, the 12th is when that event will be happening, and I'll include that link as well.
Great.
So with that, Brooke, thank you so much for your time and energy today. It was such a great experience to have you and learn about how we can really bring nature to our workplace and our lives, as well as how we can prioritize getting ourselves back in nature. So thank you all, and I will email you all the links, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. Take care.
Thanks.